You're listening to Choose FI Radio. The blueprint for financial independence lives here. If you're looking to unlock the secrets to financial independence and early retirement, you're in the right place. Stay tuned and join a community of like-minded people who are getting off the hamster wheel and taking control of their lives in the pursuit of financial independence. Choose FI, your home for financial independence online.
Guys, welcome to the show. Very excited about this particular episode. We have Naseema from financiallyintentional.com, and today we're going to be discussing her backstory and how she paid off $1 million of debt in just 2 years. What this is for me is this proves, and when we go through her story, you're going to see that she was fighting to out-earn lifestyle inflation and just kind of came to this crossroads where she realized she simply couldn't do it. And what it points to is that most of what all of us are dealing with is behavioral. It's not math, it's behavioral. And that's why this story is so critical, because you're going to very quickly see the options that have become available to her because she was willing to make a choice that maybe other people don't even realize that they've made or haven't made. And to help me with this, I have my co-host Brad here with me today. How you doing, buddy?
Hey, Jonathan, I'm doing quite well. And yeah, you're right. This is about mindset. And Naseema was living paycheck to paycheck on a six-figure income. She had that awakening. And that's what is going to be so fascinating about this episode. And yeah, we had the good fortune of meeting Naseema at FinCon this year. And she's just amazing. Her energy is infectious. She's just fun to be around. And then I learned about her story and we just had to have her on. So with that, Naseema, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, guys. I'm honored to be here. That was an awesome introduction.
You're very welcome. And I want to say, we feel so fortunate to have you on the show because I believe you just had a baby within the last couple of days.
Yes, New Year's Eve, baby.
Oh, getting that tax credit for the past year, huh?
The ultimate optimizer, my baby is. She's coming in the world being financially intentional.
You said
second generation FI, huh?
Yes, definitely.
You said to the doctor, this baby needs to happen right now. Right now. Mark the certificate.
She was running the show, believe me.
Oh, okay. Well, let's go ahead and hop right into this. I want to talk a little bit about your story, and I want to go, if you could give us kind of a sense for what your mindset was before you became financially intentional. What gets us to the place where we have $1 million in debt?
You get to that place by not even realizing that you have $1 million in debt. A lot of things I didn't consider debt. I didn't consider my student loans debt. Of course, you don't consider your housing debt because of the American dream, right? But I'm from West Oakland, California, which now is a little fancy. But when I was growing up, it was the hood. And you have two choices to get out of the hood. You can go into the military or you can go to college. Well, college was always ingrained in me, like to go to the best school. So from elementary school, I was kind of put on a track as to where I would go through magnet schools, get into AP courses, and then go to college. And of course, during that time, I became like a college elitist. So of course, I had to go to the most expensive college. And I didn't even think about price tags because honestly, that amount of money didn't even register to me. Like I didn't even understand that because I've never been exposed to that amount of money. And I just wasn't taught about money. But I was taught that by any means necessary, you go to college. So I went to USC for 6 years. I got my undergraduate and graduate degree there. And actually, that wasn't the bulk of my debt because I was able to get some grants and they have awesome endowments. But after going to school for healthcare administration and working on the administrative side of healthcare, I didn't like it. So I actually went back to school for nursing, went through an accelerated program through the University of California at San Francisco, which is a state school. But because the way that the program is structured, just in 1 year, the program was about $80-something thousand. And so I have 3 degrees. I have my bachelor's degree, my nursing degree, and my healthcare administration degree. Both of those are masters.
Okay, so, I'm interested in this. I'm with you. I totally get the degree at any cost. I kind of had that same mindset because I knew that I would be able to out-earn whatever debt I came out with, at least. And this is a little bit naive, but I'm with you on that. It's an incomprehensible amount of money. Just get the degree. Everybody else is doing it. It'll be okay. It'll work out. But I'm curious, like, let's pin down the economics of where you were. What was your total student loan debt burden with 3 degrees after graduation?
200,000.
All right, so $200,000. And then in your mind, after you did a little bit of research, what type of job did you end up getting? And what was like a reasonable pay scale for that job? What did you expect to make?
I wish I was thinking that far ahead. I wasn't. I just knew that I would go into nursing. I just happened to be fortunate to be in the Bay Area where floor nurses make 200,000 plus a year.
Wow.
Yeah. So when I was still finishing up my master's in nursing, I was working part-time and making 150,000 while going through the master's program. So when I came out, then I started making in the mid 200s.
Okay. We're going to follow up on this and get a little bit better idea of your picture. But I'm curious now because I know you have kids. And at least from the income perspective, nursing sounds incredibly lucrative. I'm curious, like if you were going to replay that or think through what you did poorly that you know you could have done better, are there any clear optimizations that you could have made to get the same job for less?
Oh my God, so many more. Initially, when I got into USC, my aunt was like, why don't you just go to community college for a couple of years? And I thought that was the most insulting thing she could have ever said. But in hindsight, I could have got the degree through community college and gotten into nursing early because I make the same as an associate's degree nurse. It doesn't matter. I don't use my master's in nursing, actually. Just as a point of reference, I'm only a staff nurse. And that's just so if I was to go into higher levels of administration, I could potentially make more. But she was just saying, you could just go to school for a couple of years at community college and then go to school. And I, thought that that was an insult. And then on top of that, when I got to USC, there was a nursing program. It was the last year that they had a nursing program on the campus. I could have went straight through that nursing program. The person that lived right next door to me, like right in the dorms, the next door, she was in the nursing program. And I was interested, but I was just like, no, I'd rather be a doctor. But then like a semester later decided I didn't want to be a doctor, but I could have went through that nursing program and I could have graduated in 2003 as a nurse instead of in 2009.
So yeah, that is the ultimate opportunity cost, right? Not only is it years of your life, but the years of schooling and the price tag. And to your point about there's almost this stigma against community colleges. I know I probably had that most of my entire life, really until Choose FI. And I realized what a life hack it is. It's really, really remarkable. And I'm also curious about nursing. So you're describing $200,000 as a salary for a floor nurse, as you call it. So that's for people just with an associate's degree. But are there other ways to optimize this on the other end where you can get maybe a slightly more advanced degree for some type of minimal amount of investment and make even more? Like, is that something that people in the FI community could consider as well?
You know what? Actually, ironically, people who come out of the union to be in administrative jobs or higher level jobs, unless you're like in the C-suite, you won't make more. And then let me also clarify that I work 2 jobs. So typically if from one job, you can do about 200,000. If you work 2 jobs, your income is unlimited. So that's why mine was so high. So, but most nurses, especially in the Bay Area, have at least 2 jobs.
So, okay, 2 jobs. What does that mean? Do you have 2 full-time jobs in essence at different hospitals, or like what does that actually mean?
So at one place I'm staff, meaning that one place I get my benefits from. So most of the time when I was paying off debt, I had a part-time benefited job, I should say. So I worked 3 8-hour shifts at one place, and that provided all my benefits and everything. And that was my position. That's where my 401k was. And that provided my benefits and all that stuff. And then I had a per diem job, so at another hospital. And so because you don't have benefits, your per diem, your pay is higher. And I worked 2 days a week there. So it was 5 days a week, 3 8-hour shifts, 2 12-hour shifts.
So Naseema, you're making this insane income, this income that all of us would aspire to have. There's people that are like, what? With an associate's degree, I have a master's and I'm making a fraction of that. I mean, and this is a reality that anybody can do this. I mean, community colleges are not incredibly competitive in terms of being hard to get into. They kind of say, hey, open arms, we're here for you. So on that end, this is just really amazing. But the other side of this is essentially this isn't your path to financial freedom or financial independence. I mean, you are, even after you have this high level of income, years later, you're paycheck to paycheck and $1 million of debt. How do we get there? What happens?
So I think that your lifestyle grows with your income, but I wasn't doing anything that was extraordinary. I lived in the San Francisco Bay Area where you guys know housing prices are high. So I had the house, but it was still like in the suburbs. So I still paid a fraction of the price as I would have bought a house in Oakland. I had the car, I had a luxury car. But other than that, I mean, the car was paid off. That was like the thing. I was like, I didn't want to be in debt. So I paid off my car. But other than that, it was really just the student loans. And of course, the housing cost still was a significant part of my budget. And so that's mostly where the debt came from. So most of the debt is just the student loans and the housing, but it wasn't extraordinary housing. It was basic Bay Area housing.
Tell us a little bit more about that. Do you remember what your mortgage was for this home and how long did you stay there?
It was $4,200 and I stayed there for 3.5 years.
So $4,200 a month. And then why did you end up leaving that situation?
It just didn't serve me anymore. Like I said, I was in the suburbs. So I was about 40 minutes outside of where my family was. I kind of wanted to be back in Oakland. And I didn't need, my house was pretty big. I didn't need that much space. I had like 4,000 square foot house.
So you have this incredible income, but I mean, this isn't like your direct path. You don't have this direct path to financial independence. You go from having $200,000 in college debt to $1 million. Like, how do we get there? Did this start in school or was this debt that you accumulated afterwards?
So I had debt around real estate. I had a condo in LA that I was renting out. It was actually a pretty good investment for me, money-wise, but not building-wise, because it was an older building and it did a lot of maintenance. There was HOA issues. And so it became more of a headache than something that was actually helping me generate extra income. So when I got to that breaking point, I decided that I needed to sell my condo. At this point, that condo sale helped me to kind of jumpstart my path to paying off debt. But I guess it was before I was really on this journey. I was just like, my debt consisted of cars and my house or whatever, not my student loans.
So Naseema, you're in college at USC, you have this condo, then I guess you decide to move back home to the Bay Area. When you move back home, you are ultimately getting this amazing job, paying a significant salary, and you have a decision at that point to purchase some type of housing arrangement or rent or multiple different options, move in with a friend or a family member. Talk us through your decision that ultimately led to buying this house that saddled you with, I guess, $250,000 in debt.
Yeah, the decision to buy a house stemmed off of being a mom and being pregnant and kind of having this security, having the feeling to like have to have security around me. So I went from like a 500 square foot apartment to having this desire to have to buy this 4,000 square foot house because this is going to be my forever home. I'm having this baby. So I just felt like I needed that and I deserved that because I could afford it. When I was looking for houses in the Bay Area, of course, they run your income and they're just like, oh, yeah, you can afford all of this. So I was like, why not? But affording it, obviously means that well over half of your income towards the mortgage. But I didn't understand that. I just felt like if I got approved for this loan, that means that I can afford it and I deserve it because my baby deserves it. And it was more of like kind of like pregnancy psychosis than anything else when I bought that house.
Well, I wanted to pause on that just because that was really, really interesting to me for multiple reasons. So if I'm tying the threads here, you're working probably 2 jobs and making somewhere in between $200,000 to $300,000 at this point in time. Is that accurate?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So when you went into this, I guess real estate agent or banker to apply for the loan, how much did they tell you that you could quote unquote afford?
Oh man, it was like 800 something thousand. In a mortgage.
It's easy. You got this, the whole thing.
Yeah. They were just like, we love your income. Like, just look anywhere.
And you did it. You took them up on it.
Yeah. And I
Right.
did.
And you
I
had
was like, really? Like, I was looking at this smaller house, but if I can afford this big house, why wouldn't I get it? Like, that would be stupid.
Of course.
and your quote there, I can afford it and I deserve it.
Yes.
I wonder if you today, the Naseema today, who's found 5, when you look back at that quote, I deserve it. Like, what goes through your mind?
I think so differently now. I can't even imagine thinking like that. It's just funny to me how I was processing things. But I see it all the time with people that I work with, and they don't get it. And then I don't get it because I think totally differently. But it's just a different way of thinking. It's like one of those kind of things like you've been told that you're supposed to live a certain kind of way. You checked off all the boxes. You did everything that you needed to do. And so this is where you're supposed to be at. If the realtor says that you can afford a 4,000 square foot house that you know you don't need, you're going to be like, hell yeah, I can afford it. And I did all the right things to get here. So why shouldn't I have it? And if somebody tells you differently, you think that they're tripping. But nobody does because everybody thinks that you made it. Everybody thinks that I had it all figured out. People would ask me for financial advice. They thought I had made it, but I was really just game goofy. But that's a good word. I don't know if you guys know what game goofy means.
I do now. I got it all pulled up. Man, 4,000 square foot house for you and a baby. I mean, you could have an east wing, a west wing, a north wing, and a south wing. You guys could not see each other for days and have your own oasis.
We had vacuum lines in most of the room in the house because they were not used.
So you do it. You follow the real estate agent's advice. You deserve it. You've landed it. You've got the McMansion. You've got the luxury car. Things are just working. I mean, you have just followed the rules and you're in the promised land. Is that your story? Is that where you are? And is that contentment?
No, I wasn't content and I was hella broke. And I had a 1-year-old and I was just like, if something happened to me right now, I don't have anything for her. I had zero savings. I actually owed my sister money because I bought a brand new house and I had to put blinds in all the 36 windows. And so that was a big hit all at once. And so I went from having a little bit of savings to nothing and then owing my sister money. And I was just like, this is just not right. Like, I make too much money to be this broke. I have to figure this out. Something has to change. And that was it. And it was really just because of my baby. It's like, oftentimes we don't do things for ourselves, but we'll do something for our kids. And that's what triggered that lifestyle change.
So this is really incredible. And I totally get where you're coming from. I completely understand that mindset. And I think it's something that many people in our audience can relate to. But I'm curious, there's this quote, the Jim Rohn quote, you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. For you, in your social circle and maybe outside of that, who influenced you to think about money differently?
I didn't have anyone in my social sphere to talk to about money. Like I said, everybody thought I had it figured out. So people would come to me. So I knew that I had to reach outside of the resources that I knew in order to get more information. And so I simply, like, this is really crazy, just did a Google search because I felt like, okay, if it's not through real estate, I have to learn about investing in order to figure out how to get out of this situation. And I need to sell this condo that'll give me some money to pay off a little bit of this debt that I have, and then I can figure out how to invest it. So I just Googled top investment podcast because I had an hour commute to work. I was like, let me listen to the podcast and then I'll learn about investing. Ironically, Dave Ramsey came up as one of the top investing podcasts. And so I just started listening to Dave Ramsey. And at first I was like, what does Dave Ramsey know about this girl from Oakland and $200,000 in student loans? And that's stupid to pay off student loans because that's good debt. And then I just started listening to people's stories and I was just seeing the exponential amount of debt that they were paying off. And they only made a little bit of what I was making. The stories were so motivating and I would cry almost every time I heard them. But I was just like, listen, if these people could pay off that amount of debt, why am I over here playing? Like, I could really do this. And so Dave Ramsey set me on my course to pay off the debt.
That is awesome. So once you say, I can do this, if they can do this on so much less, why can't I? Where do you go from there? Like the next day you wake up and you say, all right, it's go time. 2019 goals, it's go time. Let's do this. What do you actually do? What's that first step?
It wasn't just like that. I just kept on listening. I started listening so much that it had to make sense to me first. The first thing I had to just wrap my head around was that the student loans didn't have to stay with me forever. But that took me a long time to break. Ironically, what happened was I work nights. And so I was going into work one night and somebody hit my car. But they hit my car right when I got to the realization that I needed to just knock the student loan debt out. It was a debt-free story on, and she had about $100,000 in student loan debt, but she was in the public student loan forgiveness program, just like I was, but she had a higher income and she had done the math. So she basically broke down the math for me that I needed to hear in order to understand why it was cost effective for me to pay down my student loans as opposed to keeping them in the public student loan forgiveness program. And then I was just like, okay, I got it. 2 seconds later, a car T-bones me, which totals out. I had another car. So it was my commuter car that I had paid off, but I was debating whether to get rid of it. And that was my sign right there. And then from that point on, that's when I just start attacking my debt, like just sending every dollar I could towards my debt. It was a point where I had flooded my student loan servicer with payments because I was just like, if I found $1, I would pay it.
Well, where'd you find the dollar? Because you were paycheck to paycheck. You were borrowing money from your sister to get blinds and 36 windows. I mean, where did you find the space?
I made the space because I did not know where my money was going. I had no idea. And I was just spending money. People just spend money blindly. You go to Trader Joe's, you see all the stuff you want to buy, you go to Target, you just like aimlessly spend money. I don't know where all that money went, but from that day forward, I meticulously tracked every dollar that came in and out. And this is after I sold my condo. So I did have some extra money. So I sold my condo that grossed about $100,000. And to get my house, I took a 403B loan out. So I paid that off. I paid off my car, that commuter car that I had, and then some smaller miscellaneous stuff. So I did at that point have some savings, but that was like when I was listening to Dave Ramsey and kind of figuring out what I wanted to do. I just had money sitting there. So all of those dollars started to come out. And then like, I'm telling you, just money started coming out of nowhere. Like I got this huge unexpected tax refund. Money started coming from places. And I was just like, every dollar is going to work for me from this point on. And so even though I was living paycheck to paycheck, it wasn't because of all my bills. It was just because I just didn't know where my money was going. So I easily found $6,000 a month to start throwing at my debt once I started doing this, once I started working the debt snowball and zero-based budgeting.
Wow, $6,000 a month. That's incredible. So you said you are meticulously tracking this, right? So I understand that means writing everything down, but like, are you using Excel? Like what are you using to actually track this? Did you hit on like the method that you kept with right at the beginning? Or was this really simple somebody else could do? We're always looking for those actionable tips. What can someone else do who's in that place to start tracking what they're doing?
Ironically, this is when Dave Ramsey came out with his Every Dollar app. So that's a zero-based budgeting app. As soon as it came out, I was like one of the first users. And so I started learning how to zero-based budget. And it did take a couple months. It took about 3 or 4 months to get it down. But once I got it down, it was like automatic that I was finding $4,000, $6,000, $9,000 a month to throw at my debt consistently. And this is without even working overtime. It's not like I changed the way that I was working. Like this is like just with the income that I had.
Let's talk about the zero-based budget just a little bit more. Like explain that for a listener. How does someone go about implementing a zero-based budget? What does that mean?
So you're going to project out what you think your income is going to be. So you're planning your income in advance. So you say next month I'm going to make $10,000. A zero-based budget is assigning every dollar of that $10,000 an assignment. So if your goal is to pay off debt, like mine was to be debt-free by my 36th birthday, and that was a pretty optimistic goal, then I knew that I had to pay at least $6,000 a month towards my debt. So in that zero-based budget, that became my priority. So I would always set that first. I wasn't making $10,000 a month. I was making more like $20,000 a month, right? So I would put the $20,000 a month at the top of my budget. And then I would put that $6,000 goal in there. And then I would adjust every category of my life around that. So I knew exactly how much I had for food, transportation, how much I could spend on going to the movies. Like everything had an assignment. Every one of those dollars had an assignment. And I also knew if something came up with my daughter, if there was an extra expense at daycare, where I could pull that money from. Maybe I couldn't pay that $6,000 a month, but that was always my goal. So a zero-based budget gives every dollar an assignment, but it also helps you project how you can work towards whatever financial goal you're working towards, be it paying off debt, be it investing. You set those goals first and then you adjust your budget around that. Zero-based budgeting doesn't mean that you have $0 in your bank account. It doesn't have anything to do with that. It works off of your projected income, and then you plan in advance what every one of those dollars is going to be doing for you.
That's awesome. And I'm curious because even before you were making good, responsible financial decisions, you were considered, Naseema knows how to handle money. Naseema's good with money. Naseema's got the big house. She's got the luxury car. She's got it all figured out. And then suddenly you're doing this and you're reeling in, you're cutting out cars, you're saying no to lunches, you're reeling in your lifestyle. I'm curious, what was the feedback from your social sphere as you were, because you have to create this space and then you have to maintain this space between your income and your expenses. And in your case, you had to maintain it at least for 2 years. What was the general feedback on that?
Well, there was two sides. So a lot of people just trust what I say always because they know I'm the kind of person that when I say or do something, I always get it done. So if I totally change my perspective on stuff, there's always people that are going to be like, I'm still riding with you. I understand why you're doing it because you can explain it to me. And I see that you're hitting these landmarks. And then there's people like my grandfather that's like, I don't even understand why you would want to pay off your debt. People are always going to have debt. And that's his mindset right now. Like he's 90 years old and he's like, oh, I need to go to the bank to get a refinance loan so I can remodel my kitchen. I'm like, you are 90 years old. But that's the mindset. So I had people on both sides like that.
He's going to get a 40-year kitchen.
Yeah, exactly.
So Naseema, I guess your grandfather's saying you're always going to have debt. You talked before about, I didn't consider things debt, like student loans and house, but obviously you had this change, right? And while you have your surroundings and family members telling you one thing, you're living a different life, and at least you're starting to, right? This was the very first inklings of a path that would lead you to FI. What was your reaction mentally and also person to person? Did you talk about what you were doing, or were you just kind of doing your own thing?
Initially, I was just doing my own thing, but I felt so free. For once, I felt some control over my life. I always thought I was going to have to hustle and grind because I was always taught that hustle and grind. And I was starting to see something that was totally different. And the feeling that came over me was so freeing. I was just like, everybody needs to know about this. And why don't we know about this? We as a people, like, I'm a young Black professional woman. All I'm taught is to hustle. There has to be another way. And so I asked my friends, I was like, I've been doing this thing with my money, and this is where I'm at right now. If I put this information into a blog, will you guys read it and implement some of this stuff? Because I want you to feel the same way that I'm feeling. A lot of my friends are parents. They have most of them have girls, ironically, and I wanted us to be empowered. And so I was just like, I'm going to just put this in a blog for you guys to read because I don't like repeating myself, but I'm going to put down and just start tracking what I'm doing. Do you guys feel like that would be helpful? And they were like, yeah. And that was how Financially Intentional was born.
Let's talk a little bit more about this. You pay off $1 million, and you don't just pay $1 million in one fell swoop. It's a 2-year journey. What were those big wins? Let's say you're doing like the debt snowball and you're paying off your debt smallest to largest. Do you kind of remember stepwise when you were clearing the balance sheet what those wins were?
You know what? Besides like selling my house, and like I said, when I sold my house, I had a little bit left over when I started my debt snowball. And so I made some significant payments in the beginning. Other than that, it was the satisfaction that I was feeling from every check coming in being optimized.
You look at paying off $1 million in debt. And in your case, I know a house was a pretty big piece of this, but I'm curious, was it something that you did at the beginning, or was this more like the capstone that really followed up on all of the other consumer debt that you paid off?
That was totally at the end. Like I hardly had any debt left when I sold my house. But that's what people think. People think I just sold my house and then I was magically out of debt. Like before I sold the house, I had paid off $300,000 in debt total.
Wow. So by creating this space and maintaining this, you were able to pay off $300,000, and then to cap that, you sold the McMansion, and that is what got you to $1 million. But you got to live somewhere. Like when you make all this progress over this 2-year period, and then you decide to leave the McMansion, what does this more fiscally responsible version of yourself do? What do you do?
So I leave the McMansion and I move into 1,000 square foot 2-bedroom apartment, but it's in the middle of downtown Oakland. So my mortgage was $4,200, and I went down to being optimized at rent of $3,600 a month.
Yeah.
But it helped me because I didn't have this debt. And so now that 6,000 plus was going into my investments.
Timeline wise, what year was that where you have, gotten rid of the larger complex, and now you don't have that massive mortgage hanging over your head, although you may have this, monthly rent payment, and you're in a high cost of living area? Where are we in terms of timeline? What year is this?
That was in October 2017.
You still have this incredible shovel. You have this incredible income ability. And now you essentially have no debt. I mean, you're completely debt free, albeit living in a high cost of living area. What comes to my mind is you have freedom now. Your income is finally yours. With a $20,000 a month of income and probably less than 7 or 8 in expenses, like what do you do with that shovel, and how do you design your life now that you've been able to free all this space up?
I honestly didn't know what my next steps were until I found you guys. In all honesty, I was at that point that a lot of people get to when they pay off all that debt. And they have been working on this goal, and they've been grinding like heads down, pedal to the metal, all gas, no brakes, just going hard, paying off debt. And then it's done. And then you're just like, wow, what is my life going to consist of now? And ironically, when I sold my house and I moved into that apartment, I was unpacking, listening to podcasts. And that's when Jamila had you on Journey to Launch. And then that's when I started following you guys and started optimizing my investments and stuff like that. Because I basically just had my money sitting in a savings account.
Wow. This is really exciting. And, now that you've had essentially a whole other year of being on the path to financial independence with an incredibly high savings rate, largely due to this massive income that you had, but the income that was relying on 2 jobs, how do you balance that lifestyle quality play with the path to financial independence?
It's funny because I started getting into listening on all the podcasts, understanding investing, understanding what I need, my FU number, and I was on track. I figured out that it was going to take me 3.5 to 4 years to get to my FU number, and I was cool with that. But what actually happened was one of my jobs became really toxic, and it was an unsafe place to work, and I was facing losing my license. I was just at the point I realized I ain't got to do this mess no more. I don't have to deal with this. I don't have to be in a job that I can potentially lose my license or just at a basic level be unhappy. I was crying every night before I went to work. And I was just like, I have a choice now. I bought my freedom. So I am not going to work there anymore. And then during this time, my partner was offered a job out of state where the cost of living would be significantly lower, but I would be in driving range to work. And so that decision led me to move to a different state, move out of the Bay Area, but be close enough that now I only have to work 6 days a month. I still have a pretty high savings rate, but I'm not focused so much on that FU number. I'm focused on spending time with my family. And that's how things have shifted because I had the choice, because I did not have that looming debt over my head.
That's absolutely amazing. I have a choice now. I bought my freedom. What a powerful quote. And you live that immediately. That's the beauty of FI and this entire journey. even though you were on this incredibly accelerated path, right? You would have
Mhm.
reached that FU money amount in, you said, a sub 4 years.
Yeah.
You always have a choice, right? Along the
Yeah.
way, you don't have to wait until that point. And now it sounds like you're living this wonderful, optimized life, albeit, I guess, with a 3-hour commute a couple times a month. But other than that, are you like a stay-at-home mom? I mean, is that what your life looks like 24 days of the month otherwise?
Pretty much being a stay-at-home mom and then, helping people through financially intentional. That's all I do. But I never thought that this was possible for me. I never thought that I could actually focus on family. I always thought I was the career mom. I always thought I was going to have to hustle and grind. Like even growing up, I thought I was going to have a Manny and like my husband stay at home or his like I'm serious. Like that's how I always thought. I always thought I was going to have like either a stay-at-home husband or marry somebody whose mom was going to be in the house full time taking care of my kids. I never thought that it would be possible for me because I always thought that in order to make it, you had to hustle. And I'm not one to fail, to look like a failure. I'm that driven person. I got to be grinding all the time. I have to be quote unquote successful. And so in order to be successful, you got to be working. You got to be out there hustling. You have to be away from home. So that's all I thought was possible.
Naseema, your story is so powerful. And I know that there are people listening to this that are saying, that's me. That's exactly the path that I want to be on, that there's changes that she implemented that I believe that I could do and benefit from as well. I'm just grateful for you for sharing it. On most shows, that would be the end of the episode. But on this show, we would love to give you the chance to tackle the hot seat. Are you ready for this?
I love it. Yes, I love the hot seat. So excited.
In a world drowning in debt and rampant consumption, trapped by the chains of lifestyle inflation, these questions highlight the secrets of those who have broken free. Welcome to the Choose FI Hot Seat.
All right, Naseema, question number 1, your favorite blog that's not your own.
I would have to say Clever Girl Finance. It covers pretty much every financial topic that relates to young professional women, millennial Generation X women. So I think that's a great resource.
All right, question number 2, your favorite article of all time. Now, this can be one that you wrote or somebody else's.
I definitely would have to go back to the classic and say the J.L. Collins stock series. That's what got me back into investing and really understanding investing. So I have to give all credit to J.L. Collins.
Nice.
All right, Naseema, question number 3, your favorite life hack.
My favorite life hack is being a Nevada resident and working in California. I live in a no state tax state and I'm just 10 minutes from the California border. So I can benefit from the high income of California, but live in a low cost of living state of Nevada.
Yeah, that's truly domestic geo arbitrage.
Yeah, that's awesome, Naseema. So talk us through like the actual ramifications of this for your budget, because I assume it's more than even just the state income tax, which is an enormous amount. Have you calculated all the savings for just living inside of Nevada, like you said, 10 minutes over the border?
I have not. I'm not a real like math person. I always turn to you guys' Facebook group in order to get like my math right. But no, it's a lot of tax savings. My mortgage is a fraction. I went from, like I said, $3,600 in rent to about $2,500 mortgage, which includes all my HOAs and everything. Everything's just cheaper. Yeah.
Well, I mean, at bare minimum, you're saving that state income tax, which I believe, and I would have to double check this, it's got to be in between 8 to 10% for California.
Yeah, I think last year my state income taxes alone, I paid like $17,000 or something.
Wow. All right. Question number 4, your biggest financial mistake. And I want to actually set this up. I'm sure that you can give us more details on this, but I know that you actually had a bankruptcy in your past, didn't you?
Definitely. I decided to get into real estate at the height of the recession. So the condo that I mentioned earlier, selling, that was like my first piece of real estate that I bought when I was in graduate school. Then I continued to buy real estate through 2007. through the housing crash. So I had 5 properties, 2 in California, 1 in Georgia, 2 in North Carolina. I was renting those out and then couldn't keep up with the rents and eventually had to file bankruptcy because I was so underwater with those mortgages. So yeah, that was definitely one of my biggest mistakes. I had 2 foreclosures, 2 short sales, and then I just kept the condo. But it was a big hit on me. But luckily I made that mistake early in my 20s. So, I could be optimistic about that. But yeah, that was major.
I mean, you rebuilt from that. That's incredible. I mean, that, you
Yeah.
could see, I could never be financially successful because I had to deal with this, but it didn't hold you back.
Nah, I'm not that kind of person. I don't let things hold me back. I use failure as lessons as opposed to something that's going to keep me from growing.
And if I can, I'd love to tie this to question number 5, the advice you would give your younger self. But for you specifically, I want to put a face behind that. Your path to financial independence is not linear, right? We've talked about all these different things. And you have kids and you have friends and you have people in your circle that are relying on you and leaning on you. What is the advice that you would give them? What is the secret to building wealth?
It's really about mindset. It's really about changing the way that we look at money. A lot of times, especially how we grow up, we don't feel like we deserve to be wealthy. We don't feel like that's for us. That's for other people. And you guys, you deserve to be wealthy and it doesn't have to be hard. It's like J.L. Collins said, a very simple path to wealth. So I wish I would have just known someone who had that mindset early on and through that mindset implemented just these simple steps that it takes to actually build real wealth. You don't have to be famous. You don't have to hit the lotto. You have everything it takes to be successful, to actually have money, and to build generational wealth. We have to stop starting over from zero, and we have to look at its obligation and in our duty to make sure that we do for ourselves and do what we need to do to build wealth, but also to make sure that that wealth is transferred to our next generation. So that's what I would make sure that all my girls, my girls and my friends' girls, and just our kids understand that we deserve it.
Funny story. There's, I just to kind of tie you and Brad together on this one. I know at FinCon, I saw this video clip of you talking to him and telling him that you're telling your girls to emulate Brad Barrett's girls.
Oh yeah. Yeah, they are the ultimate life optimizers. And I really think that those are like the role models that I want my kids to have. But they have to see it from their perspective and they can understand it from their perspective. I feel like it'll be super impactful. It's going to be more impactful than anything I could tell them.
Well, thank you. Obviously, my girls saw that video and it like made their entire week. So that was incredibly cool. Yeah, I mean this second generation FI conversation, it's a fascinating one, and I mean we really do try to bring our kids into the conversation. Like when Laura and I are trying to make the decision on whether to purchase something or just anything about our financial lives. I mean, of course, there are things that we do and don't tell them at this point, but we're trying to be very open with them and trying to include them just in the thought process. So they understand that there are real world implications for buying things. And I think that's been a big step for us. All right, Naseema, we've got one bonus question for you. So in the past 12 or so months, what's the purchase that you've made that's added the most value to your life?
This is going to go on a whole mommy binge. So sorry, you guys, because I just had a baby. So there is this device that's called Aegis Neonate Medical Wrap. And basically what it is, it's a glorified tube top. Because my daughter was a little under a month early, skin to skin is essential. This tube top allowed me to be skin to skin, hands free through the hospital and through these last couple of days at home through recovery. And that's basically saved both of our lives because, being skin to skin is amazing. But as a labor and delivery nurse, I've seen people drop their kids, like drop babies and all kind of stuff. But this literally saves her from that and being in the comfort of being close to me. But also Skin to Skin helps with all kind of just transitional issues that can happen. Like, for example, because she was born early, she's susceptible to being more jaundice, and being able to be skin to skin and exclusively breastfeeding has helped save her literally, because that accumulation of jaundice can cause a lot of long-term effects. And so just this glorified tube top has saved both me and my baby. So that's the best purchase that I've made.
This glorified tube top should get you as a spokesperson. I'm sold. I don't even need one. And I'm like, this is amazing.
I'm going to try to ask.
Naseema, your story has been amazing. And I know there's so many people listening to this that say, I have someone that needs to get in touch with her, that needs to connect with her, and just basically just talk, just get some sense of what my next step should be. And you're a fantastic role model. And I would love to connect those individuals with you. What is the best way for someone to connect with what you're doing and to reach out?
So if you really want to be interactive, I have a really interactive Facebook group. I think second to you guys' Facebook groups, I feel like mine is the bomb. So just reach out to the Financially Intentional Facebook group. I'm also very active on Instagram. But if you really want that interaction and you really want to get help, the Facebook group is a place to turn to. And also my blog is at financiallyintentional.com. So those are the 3 places you can get in contact with me.
Awesome. Naseema, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you, guys.
Brad, this was an incredible story with so much actionable content in there. Everything from, honestly, an optimized path to earn an incredible income to this change in mindset. And I truly believe this, and I've seen it. I've seen it personally, and I've seen it in other people's lives, that you can't out-earn lifestyle inflation. It's not a math problem. It's behavioral. I just loved how she was able to recognize that and the extreme action that she took to reel it in, and the options that has provided her in the very near future, frankly, now.
Yeah, her mindset change and that awakening, that was everything. What else changed in her life? Not all that much in the grand cosmic scheme of things, but she just looked at her life and said, I'm making, $300,000 and I'm living paycheck to paycheck. And now she's not, right? Now she's at a point where she said if she had kept on that path, she would have reached FU money in under 4 years. And who knows, financial independence, probably a couple years thereafter. The beautiful thing is she has the space to make decisions to make her life the best that it can be for her and her family. And I think that's beautiful. And yeah, this story had a little bit of everything. So a huge thank you to Naseema for coming on.
All right, my friends, if you got value from this episode, and if you've been getting value from the episodes up to this point, just take 1 second and press the subscribe button on the platform you're listening to this on. It just lets the providers know you're getting value from the show and you want to be here when we produce additional content. If you want to support us and what we're doing here at Choose FI, here are 4 easy ways. 1, leave us an iTunes review. To do that, just go to choosefi.com/iTunes. 2, use our page to sign up for travel credit cards. If you want to travel the world with miles and points instead of your hard-earned dollars, then just go to choosefi.com/cards and get started today. 3, if you're working on the milestones of FI, set up a personal capital account to track your progress and use our affiliate link. It's completely free, and just go to choosefi.com/PC. P as in Paul, C as in cat. And 4, and most importantly, find your friends, coworkers, and family members who might be open to this message and tell them about the podcast. Have them start with episode 100. It is a fantastic starting place. All right, my friends, the fire is spreading. We'll see you next time as we continue to go down the road less traveled.
You've been listening to Choose FI Radio Podcast, where we help middle-class America build wealth, one life hack at a time.